carried. Thank you both.
Thank you.
So we're going to go straight to the panels. I'm just worried the panels have been waiting. We're just having a little bit of discussion. The next item on the report was the chair's report, but I'm just aware that our panels have been waiting quite a long time. We can either do this or we've got a choice. Can I just check with the panels? I know there are some people on a tight time frame. My feeling is let's respect the panels and go straight to them. We're all good with that? Yeah. Excellent. Happy to do. So just before we move to the panels, I'm going to ask Councillor Kathy Casey as the fearless leader of the panels, and sorry Kathy, I can't remember your title. I've always thought of you as the overlord, and I thought no, I shouldn't be saying that. The overlord of the panels, Councillor Kathy Casey, to make a few introductory remarks.
Oh, thanks, Penny. In this last term of council, I decided I was going to focus on the things I do as a councillor that bring me joy, and being the overlord of the panels is one of the roles that brings me immense joy. I just love it. And I want to just say a few words about these extraordinary people and thank the Mayor for giving me the role, and please can I have it next term as well? Thank you very much. So we've got 66 members of the public who were appointed to the 6 demographic advisory panels. And these people don't do it for the money, they do it for the love. They do it because we have a diverse community in Auckland, and many of these communities are marginalised, and we as a council do not understand them terribly well. And what the panels have done in different forms, and I'll talk about that just shortly, is to raise the visibility of the issues that really affect these communities. And for that, you know, my heart goes out to you. So the panels, and I hope and I think there have been different ways that the councillors, the 20 councillors and the Mayor, have interacted with the panels. You've seen them we've asked them for advice on our plans, our policies and our bylaws. They have come to integrated panel sessions where we've had councillors and the executive leadership team. They've been immensely valuable. They've come to my committee, which is the Community Development and Safety Committee. We have co-hosted. Each of the 6 panels has co-hosted a session, and they have been amazing because we kind of break the rules at that panel. I know the Mayor doesn't come, which is great, because we don't break the rules, we bend the rules to make sure that the issues are presented in a way that has maximum impact. And you know, you'll hear more about that later, I'm sure. So the other way you hear about the panels is today. This is the formal reporting to the Mayor and the councillors of what the panels have got up to in the last term. And all power to your elbow. So it's not just the panel members, and you'll meet some of them today. There's a whole host of support for them. And I'd like to especially mention the lead officer and the deputy lead officer for each of the panels. These are jobs that our staff take on above and beyond what they do in their busy jobs. And often it's in the evening, it's at times when, you know, they should be at home with their families, but they're not. They're actually supporting the issues being raised by the panels. So for that, I say thank you. I'd also like to thank the liaison councillors who do exactly the same above and beyond their jobs as busy councillors. They turn up and liaise between the panels and Auckland Council. It's fantastic. But there's another. And you know how this panel is not actually about Penny or the councils, it's actually about the administrators, the secretaries, who actually do all the work. Each of the panels has a secretary, and again, that's on top of the job they do. So just to say thank you, and then before Austin, after Austin Kim, we now have Carol. And Carol, you had big boots to fill, and you filled them. Carol, as you'll hear shortly, organises from the staff perspective the 6 demographic advisory panels. So it's been my great delight, and I mean that absolutely sincerely, to be the overlord. Looking forward to it again next term. Over to you.
Kia ora. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you, Chair Pennyhouse, for giving us the opportunity to speak to today's meeting, particularly on your last meeting as Chair. As after working closely with you on the unitary plan many years ago, I feel privileged to be here at your final meeting as chair. And I've always valued your passion for community and your collaborative working style, and that's really great that the advisory panels have come through to today's last meeting. I also would like to acknowledge Mayor Phil Goff's role as establishing the advisory panels, and thank you for that. And obviously our overlord, Chief Liaison Councillor Kathy Casey, for your opening remarks and for your ongoing guidance and wisdom through the panel programme. I'd also like to acknowledge the other liaison councillors, other members of the governing body and IMSB members. So I came into the role early this year as the principal advisor to the panels, and I'm honoured to be able to introduce the work of the demographic advisory panels. Over the last few months, REMU have been carrying out an independent review of the work of the panels, which we will be sharing in the next couple of weeks. This highlights how much the panels have influenced the council in how many different ways. While the panels may find it difficult to see tangible results from their engagement with the council at times, their influence has been felt within council meetings during the development of plans and policies, as well as in our ongoing engagement with Aucklanders. The panel chairs and deputy chairs will shortly be presenting their end-of-term reports, which highlight the huge range of issues that the panels have been involved with during the last 2.5 years. During the term, they've also engaged with their communities and as a result, helped the council and its family to build better understanding of the views and needs of Auckland's diverse communities. Before I invite the panel chairs to speak to their reports, I would also like to take the opportunity to say a few thank yous. Firstly, the panel members themselves, and it's great so many have come today. The range of experience, skills and perspectives they bring to the council is invaluable, and we are significantly better off as a result of their advice and advocacy. Their dedication to ensure that their community's voices are heard during decision-making processes is much appreciated. Secondly, to the liaison councillors, thank you for your ongoing advocacy and support for the panels, and obviously in particular to Chief Liaison Councillor Kathy, whose drive and enthusiasm shapes the work and role within council. The panels have also valued the discussions they've had with councillors and IMSB members through the integrated panel meetings and at the Community Development and Safety Committee. To the leads and deputy leads who provide a strategic link between the panel and the council's core work and who support the panels on top of their day jobs, thank you all for your hard work and support over the term. And as Kathy also referenced, thank you also to our governance advisors who help to keep the panels running smoothly and who are the glue that hold this together. I'd now like to invite Mary Schnackenberg, Chair of the Disability Advisory Panel, to talk to their report.
Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the opportunity to share with you some of the achievements of the Disability Advisory Panel and to look to the future. Some of you may remember meeting the Human Rights Commissioner's Disability Commissioner, Paula Tesoriero, when she came to talk to the Community Development and Safety Committee in May this year. A couple of weeks ago, Paula spoke again to a meeting this time in Canberra, and she began with some words that I relate very strongly to. She said, "There's a saying which reflects the social model of disability. Diversity is about having a seat at the table. Inclusion is about having a voice, and belonging is about having that voice heard." Disabled people developed the social model of disability because the traditional medical model did not explain their personal experience of disability or help to develop more inclusive ways of living. The social model of disability says that disability is caused by the way society is organised rather than by a person's impairment or difference. It looks at ways of removing barriers that restrict life choices for disabled people. When barriers are removed, disabled people can be independent and equal in society with choice and control over their own lives. The Disability Advisory Panel has a voice at the council table, and we enjoy a sense of belonging in that our voice is heard. Our panel has had some real successes over the 2.5 years of its term. Top of the list must be accessible housing. at last, council and government know there is a dire shortage of accessible housing in Auckland. Our victory is that we don't have to justify the why that this needs fixing. The challenge is the how and the when. Thank you, Council. Public transport has been an ongoing issue. This city, with its challenging topography, dominated by cars, must change its ways if disabled Aucklanders are going to be able to get around and be fully participating members of the community. And now there are these delightful e-scooters. Council staff have done their best, in my opinion, to manage a very difficult situation that was not of Council's making. In my role as chair of this panel, I will be presenting at a national symposium on micromobility on the 20th of September, when officials, commercial suppliers and users can attempt to bring safety back to our footpaths. We held 2 community forums, one on the North Shore and the other in Otahuhu. These forums reinforced the accessible housing and public transport issues, that they are indeed top of mind in the disability community. We've had several presentations from staff and council CCOs. The panel has made recommendations to the Regional Facilities Auckland about ways to make their facilities more inclusive for disabled Aucklanders. However, physical limitations at a number of facilities are limiting attendance at public events by a number of wheelchair users. We've supported and encouraged staff working on the local body elections about ways to make voting procedures more accessible. Auckland Council has a proud record in this regard, and they're repeating all the good things they did in 2016 this year. We linked with the seniors panel to request the urgent repair of the Auckland Town Hall lift in the Civic car park. It's quite demoralising when such an important access feature is allowed to degrade to the extent that lift has done. We're really pleased that Auckland Live is continuing to deliver some shows with audio description and NZSL interpreting. The Auckland Arts Festival has presented great shows for our community, and in March this year, for New Zealand, the first audio described show in Te Reo Māori, The Kuia and the Spider. And movies and parks are showing captioned films. Inevitably, no matter how good things may be, we always want more. And finally, I want to talk about the Disability Operational Action Plan. Now in the hands of the Diversity and Inclusion team, with support from the panel, the plan is being refreshed with a series of achievable short and long-term goals. We've been asked to comment on what the panel should pick up in the next term. Accessible housing and public transport will remain top of mind. The refreshed Disability Operational Action Plan, if made public and linked to publicity about achievements, will be a springboard for Council to demonstrate it is listening to our community's needs and making improvements. Councils and the CCOs still have a lot of work to do to improve accessibility to their public information so that all may read. Council's done good work on accessible documents, but staff are not being properly supported with training to use the council written guidelines. I've been banging on about the lack of accessibility to rates and water care services bills for at least 6 years. It's not could do better, but it must do better. That's our message. Change is a constant and new issues will arise. We strongly encourage Council and the CCOs to build Auckland's environment and services with universal design front of mind. Universal design is not just a nice to have for the disabled. It makes fiscal common sense, as right first time is cheaper. In closing, may I sincerely thank councillors and council staff for your support and compassion. Even if we keep bringing problems to you, we do appreciate your efforts to work with us to find solutions. Above all, the next Disability Advisory Panel must strive to ensure that its voice continues to be heard at the council table, so we can continue to reduce those barriers society continues to put in our way. I'm happy to take questions. Thank you.
Mary, thank you. And I love your report in the easy read format. I have to say, I think council documents could be put in the easy read format and they'd be a hell of a lot easier to cope with. Any questions? Or if not, we'll go Councillor Watson, Councillor Darby.
Thank you very much. No, it was just a question on the victory in the housing and the victory being that we don't have to justify the why, and certainly anyone who was at that community safety meeting could not but been moved by the heart-wrenching stories of trying to find accommodation. I just wonder how you've been getting on in terms of getting to the builders, the firms that build the houses that can be accessible for disabled people, given the comparatively small cost, as I understand, that it takes to actually make houses accessible for disabled people.
In our role as the Disability Advisory Panel, we really are an advisory panel, so we're not closely connected to any of the how. We haven't, for example, met with builders, but what we look to, who is leading the how, is the Auckland Design Office and Elise Copeland and her colleagues, well supporting colleagues. So the how is to some degree in council's hands. Council has lots of influence as well as control. And I actually challenged Elise a few weeks ago and I said, well, how long is it going to be before I see any of these new accessible housing? Probably a decade away and I'll be well and truly retired. No, Mary, by the end of next year. And when I repeated her comment to the panel, I said, we can't blame Elise if this doesn't happen. But she sees consented apartments with accessibility being built in that are in housing that are coming up quite quickly. So it's just our thanks to council staff, really, who get it and who are doing what they can within their constraints.
Thank you. Great question. And last question, Councillor Darby.
It's a brief acknowledgement, actually, Chair. Mary, you refer to one of your wins. It's sort of a part win, really, isn't it? And that's on universal access and housing, because we've got a way to go. But look, I do want to acknowledge you for your participation at the meeting that the Chair and I convened with was 3 ministers. We wrote to 1 minister and we got a reply saying that 3 ministers wanted to meet us, and that was on universal access. And ordinarily those meetings are politician to politician, but we decided to bring in your representation of the panel's view because you had led this work. And you were instrumental in how those ministers all responded so affirmatively to the call for universal access and housing design. Something that we lost, Chair, you know it well, we lost it through the independent hearings panel. But we're going back there, but we decided to go back not just for Auckland, we decided to go back for the nation. And that was the approach, and your contribution that day was really, on behalf of your panel, was instrumental in having Minister Salisa take the call to make change, not just for Auckland, but for the nation. And hopefully we'll see that next year, as you have been promised by the sounds of it. So congrats.
Thank you, but we always need to remember that these things happen as part of a team. You allowed us to be there. We came and did what we could with you. But reflecting on my life, I don't recall any win that is a me only win. So it's a whole team. And so, Council, thank you.
Mary, thank you for that. That's very gracious, but good focused lobbying that you are expert at, with kindness, with good preparation, and with just a little bit of steeliness, I think goes a hell of a long way. So thank you for the excellent presentation. We've got your report and also just acknowledging the rest of your panel and wishing you all the best. And I'm sure the councillors who are around the table now will see you in the next term. So thank you very much for your work and for the mahi. So our next panel is our Ethnic Peoples Advisory panel.
Rainbow.
Oh, it's Rainbow panel. I'm just going off a little
Rainbow panel to
list. I should just rely on Carol. Our Rainbow panel. Warmest welcome. Are you, Jules? Thank you. Welcome, Rainbow panel. Lovely to have you. Oh my God. Oh, let's see. Thank you, darling. Oh, thank you, darling. Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, aren't these beautiful? Thank you, Rainbow panel. That's just lovely. I'm going to have to practice being gracious and together. So thank you. These are very beautiful. I'll just hand them to my glamorous assistant.
Atamari e, ngā kaunihira o Tāmaki. Kei te tino harikua mātou ki te kōrero i te ata nei, e pāna ngā mahi o te rōpūtaka tāpui. Kei te tino mehi ki a koutou o tēnei komiti, ko Penny Hulse, rātou ko Kathy, ko Richard Hills, ko Mia Goff Hoki. Ko ngā mema katoa, kei te mihi kia āwhina ai kia mātou. Nō reira, kia pai o koutou wiki o te reo Māori, nō reira tēnā koutou katoa.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for this opportunity to share with you some of our insights over the past 3 years. And we'd like to start with a bunch of acknowledgements because, as the saying goes, it takes a village to raise a panel. And we want to start with you, Councillor Penny Hulse. It makes me a little bit teary. You have been an unwavering, wonderful friend and ally to our communities, and we are deeply grateful for your advocacy and compassion. And we wish you well for your future adventures. And like many of us here, we're super excited to see what's next. We also love our overlord, Councillor Casey, who has been a significant champion for our and other panels. And thank you so much to Councillor Richard Hills, who's been an incredible liaison councillor for the panel and leader and advocate in our communities. Our panel believe that many of our achievements have come about because of the incredible dedication, passion and talent of the staff. We acknowledge this incredible team: James Hassel, Judith Webster, Liz Enor, Austin Kim and Carol Hayward, and all the democracy advisors, including one opposite us, and our 2019 star, Duncan Glasgow. John and I would also like to express our deep appreciation for all the Rainbow Panel members who have given so much of their time, energy and effort over the term. We've also loved the opportunities we've had to meet and take inspiration from all the other panels. And of course, last but by no means last, thank you to all of you for your leadership and the time that you've taken to deeply listen to us. We've chosen 3 achievements to highlight today. Then Judith's going to talk about the value, hopefully, that the Rainbow panel has provided for Council, and John's going to wrap up with some of our recommendations.
So we began our term strongly with a real desire to engage our communities, so they could tell us directly what their concerns were and what our areas of focus could be across our term. The resulting research, which we simply titled 3 Questions, conducted by Sissy Rock, H. McArdle, Sam Orchard and Tony Duda, gave the panel a clear sense of what our Rainbow whānau were concerned about, specific to Tāmaki, and provided much needed direction for our ongoing work and our work plan. 3 Questions has been a useful resource for the wider community as well. And Jules, alongside Lexi and Moira Clooney, were able to present this research to a range of government agencies and leaders at the Corrections Organised Government Conference in late 2018. 3 Questions will remain a legacy of this panel moving forward, and we're really pleased that that resource and research will remain a reminder of our work, as well as something to guide future work moving forward.
When the Rainbow panel first arrived around 4 years ago, one of the first pieces of work that came to us for advice was a homelessness strategy. I'm not sure that's its name, but that's its intention. And we discovered that Rainbow communities did not feature in this strategy at all. And this was really distressing to our panel, as we knew that Rainbow identified people, and especially young people, were very overrepresented. We, alongside others, strongly advocated for the inclusion of our communities in council strategies, in policy research and in action. And more recently, we again strongly advocated, some could say we threw our toys, for the inclusion of sexuality and gender in the homelessness count. And the result of this study, because it was included, showed that people living without shelter are twice as likely to identify with a rainbow sexual identity. And we recently had a fantastic hui. We invited Auckland Council officers, Housing First and Rainbow Youth to the panel to talk about this issue. It's so exciting to see what's now happening in this space. Rainbow Youth has a role that's been funded by Council, working alongside young people who are at risk of becoming or are homeless. This needs ongoing funding, by the way. There is research being undertaken by REMU and a whole raft of things. There is, of course, always still more work to be done, and especially around training, as many traditional providers of homeless services are not safe for our communities, especially for our trans and gender diverse communities. Another highlight of the past term was the provision of all gender toilets at corporate council buildings in the city centre. Going to the loo may be something that many of us take for granted, but for our trans and gender diverse community members, it can be fraught, and sometimes it's really dangerous. Auckland Council's leadership has been fantastic, and we are hopeful that this continues, and all existing single stall toilets become all gender toilets, and there is a policy put in place for all new builds to have all gender single stall toilets and changing facilities. Judith?
Kia ora koutou. I have been the lead officer for the Rainbow Panel for a very short time, but it's been a privilege to be doing that. And the panel's asked me just to comment really on their work from an organisational perspective. Look, the panel's been very active. They've driven initiatives, they've had input into a really broad range of topics, and they've advised the organisation on a number of matters. But what I really wanted to focus on was how I think the panel's helping influence the way that we as staff craft advice for you and develop policy for you. You know, as I chat to staff, they say that the panel has helped them understand some, what are probably quite simple things in a sense, but nonetheless are not understood often. that there is great diversity within rainbow communities. This is not a homogenous group. That rainbow people are represented across all the demographics, the old and the young, Māori Pacific, other ethnicities, people with disabilities. And that diversity and that broad representation brings with it a complex set of issues that rainbow people and rainbow communities face. And to me, this is about making rainbow communities and people much more visible in our policy context. So we know that the lack of rainbow visibility, if you like, in those contexts does remain an issue. So why do I think this is important? It's because when we give you policy advice, we've got a responsibility to talk to you about the impact of that advice on people in our communities. You know, are there any equity issues? Are there winners and losers in terms of what we're suggesting? And to do that, we need to understand the makeup of those communities, and we need to understand the perspectives of those communities. And the best way to understand that is to tap into people's lived experiences, and that's where the panel has been so generous to us as staff. They've shared their knowledge, they've shared their experiences, and they've shared their perspectives, and they haven't always been the same as well. There have been different perspectives coming through. I think at times this has probably been challenging for staff, but I think that's a good thing. And I think the panel's approach has always been sort of constructive and collaborative, which helps with that. So for us, I think the gain is that ultimately this is going to help us develop much more nuanced policy advice that we give to you, and it's also going to help us achieve our broader diversity and inclusion goals. I was going to end with an example, which Jules has already touched on, which was the homelessness count. So rather than go over that, I'll simply say why was it important that was influenced in that way. Clearly it raised the profile of the issue, so that in and of itself is important, but it's provided us with some data that as officers we can tap into for other policies and other advice and practices. And as Jules said, it's had operational spin-offs, if you like, and one example is the funding of in Rainbow Youth, the funding of a homeless coordinator position. So I think that really speaks for itself and illustrates what I've been trying to say. Kia ora, thank you.
Conscious of the time, and you have the report that we've submitted in front of you with our overall recommendations, but one thing that we did want to really highlight was that within our communities we are extremely diverse, and when we use the term rainbow communities, we use that plural very sort of consciously. The rainbow communities are not all the same. We stretch across lots of different genders, ethnicities, ages, socioeconomic backgrounds. And so for us, ensuring that this panel is still as diverse as it needs to be moving forward into the next iteration of the panel, whatever that may be, is really important. And the final comment we'd like to make really is that the panels provide such an important perspective to council, if we don't mind saying so ourselves. And if there's any way that the panels can actually become just a normal part of council operation as opposed to sort of being subject to a political decision, that would be something that we would be really supportive of moving forward. But otherwise, we really welcome any pātai. Kia ora.
Kia ora. There might be a couple of questions or statements, just while people think. First of all, thank you for the acknowledgement and the flowers. That means a huge amount. But thank you to the panel for helping us steer through a very challenging time as we dealt with the debate last year. Was it last year? Early this year, with Pride. And that, I think, really showed the maturity of the relationship, that we could have those really hard, searching and challenging questions that, you know, I want to take my hat off to the Mayor, Mayor Phil. That would have been a very easy debate to turn away from, or to have taken the easy road, you know, towards, but you hung in there. We took the advice of the panel. We worked through what were some very, very challenging issues, and I think we kind of held together as a community. And bridges need to be built and wounds need to be healed, but they will be, because we were honest, transparent, upfront and warm in the way that we dealt with all of this, and we could only do it because the panel were there to help backbone that discussion. I think I want to acknowledge my colleague Richard. It is hard being the only gay in the village, and at times I think that is an unnecessary burden and a heavy burden that you carry and that we place on your young shoulders, but you do it with huge dignity and love and aroha, and supported by the panel. I think that's very powerful. My wishes, I think my wish is that the panels encourage more out gay members around this table, which would be a fantastic outcome. So, any other comments or questions? Councillor Hills.
Kia ora. Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a quick comment, just to thank the panel. It's been really awesome working with you all and learning a lot myself about different parts or different people in our community, different needs. And I think there is an assumption of homogenisation of all of the panels, and every single panel has multitudes of people with different backgrounds that might cover many panels. So I think it's important to have people within our community being represented at the panels, but also acknowledging that actually you don't represent everyone like we don't, but also it's been a great place for to discuss council, the way we can make it better for everyone, and largely what I tell everyone, the rainbow issues or the issues that come up on the Rainbow Advisory Panel are generally probably same or similar as everyone else in the community, around transport, around safety, around feeling respected and understood by the rest of Auckland and included. And I think the amount of work you've all done to explain to departments the importance of certain issues that are significant to the rainbow community is important. I think we're growing up as a city and we need to be faster across all parts of our community and all parts of the city to make sure that actually we're representing the community as best as we can. So I've really enjoyed it, the friendships and the learning, and the vast amount of information I've learned, and hopefully I've helped you learn how the council machine works at times as well, or doesn't work, but yeah, we'll get there. Thank you.
Kia ora.
Member Blair. No? We had you down here. Okay. No other comments? Thank you, wonderful
Kia ora.
panel. Thank you so much. Yeah. Who's the next panel, Carol?
Can I invite the Chair and Deputy Chair of the Pacific People's Advisory Panel to come forward?
Right. Marlo? Thank you. Oh. It's a great cover. There you go. They just chose the best looking one. It's fine. Honestly, I can see I'm rapidly losing control of this. I'll hand over. Who's going to start us off?
Yeah. Ia pia whaka whamoka, pa ia whio wailo a whionga taitai a whiokof, pa ia whio wailo a whionga taitai whomo, Penny House, pa ia whio wai le sui a tangata whenua, whapea fo ili pa ia malu o le autou nei walo soi whio manuia ma langi mama, whaftai le lofa le tua, ma whaina tātou whailua I luma nuu, a tua nuu, ia mahalo lava. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Was it still morning? Yes, still morning. Hey, just made it. Good morning, everybody. Again, just on behalf of the panel, just really blessed to be here and just to share. A key thing for us is we believe we've had a really strong term this year, term of the last 2.5 years. And it's a term that's allowed us to make some real positive steps moving forward for the Pacifica community. Key things we're just going to highlight today is just around the priorities we set, some of our achievements in terms of the engagements, and then we're just gonna finish off with some acknowledgements at the end. So just a key part of what we did was we had a few priorities that you'll see before you. A major priority was just to try and increase the civic participation and look at ways in which Pasifika people can get more involved with council process. Traditionally, as all of you are all well aware, the numbers are low. The numbers have been low for a long time, both not just with voter turnouts, but just with a multitude of different council initiatives and programs, including bylaws, compliance, regulation, all those various matters. Pasifika engagement has been low. It's a combination of a few things, council's failure to acknowledge and to understand the composition of the Pacific people and how they operate, understanding those specific cultural dynamics. But at the same time, it's similar to what the Rainbow community just shared. The Pasifika is very diverse. It's a wide group. So people forget that there are Tongans, Samoans, Fijians, and they all got their own nuances and their own way of doing things. So because they're collectively grouped, there's always that false assumption that you can meet one or two groups and you've covered everybody in one hit. But the reality is, it's a very diverse group. And if you understand the dynamics of how that diverse group operates, then you have a higher probability of engagement. And a key thing for us has been trying to provide council with insights and feedback on how to improve that process, on how to improve the strategies employed to ensure that there is optimum levels of engagement with the Pasifika community. So that's been a major priority for us. Also around the housing issue, just around understanding council initiatives, affordable quality housing, increased awareness of housing options. Also wanted to contribute to council's diversity and inclusion strategy, and again, just around arts and culture, including traditional tattooing and economic development opportunities for the Pacific community as well, has been, again, key priorities of the last 2.5 years. At this stage, just going to focus on just a handful of some of the achievements that we've had over the last 2.5 years, and I'll just pass it on to Lingi, our Deputy Chair.
Kia ora tātou, ko Caroline Taco-Ingua, also known as Lingi. I just wanted to begin just to thank you to the Council for choosing me to be part of this panel. It's been a real privilege. When I was sitting here listening to Leo Pepe, the proverb, the Samoan proverb that came to mind was about o le ala le pule le tautua, which means the pathway to leadership is through service. So this definitely has been a labour of service for me and my family and for the rest of the panel members. So I just wanted to highlight, last week or 2 weeks ago, as part of our achievement to raise voter participation, we held a community forum out to Mangere, where I was born. And those are where all the great leaders come from Mangere, I heard. And so we had a really amazing time there. We talked through some of the challenges around voting participation. We had a robust conversation coming from the floor, and so it was a really good, and Lau Pepe has already highlighted some of the challenges for our community, and we've also advised council in some ways where that type of engagement can improve a little bit better for our people. The other thing that when we started, we consulted on 2 major Auckland Council plans. We run some community forum groups in Manukau, and we also, that was really interesting. Another robust, our community has always got something to say. And the third one that I want to mention is around the hygiene bylaw, which was around the tatau, which is something very significant for our community, our Pacific community, around the tatau, which is the tattoo. And that was that's where we worked together with council members, a lot of cultural intelligence was learnt during that process, and also at the event where a lot of our matua decided to change the format for that evening. So we had to step in and sort of, lead that in a safely, culturally safe way. So I just wanted to profile just those three, and I'll hand it back to Leo Pepe.
Yes, thank you, Lingi. I think a key thing that we did that was probably a little different than the previous terms was we chose to go out into the community and engage with them directly. So we had these forums in West Auckland, the Promised Land, the greatest part of Auckland. We also had it out in South Auckland. We had it in Central. So we had it right across the board. So we actually went to those to our communities as opposed to inviting them here. And no disrespect to previous how things were done in the past, but as many of you will be well aware, because of the socio-economic status for a lot of our Pacifica, it's hard having events in Town Hall. It's hard having it in Central, paying $30 just to turn up for and to park, and then getting a few snacks and biscuits on the side for all your effort for turning up and listening. So these are all the things that have that we identified as key issues in terms of pushing council to engage. And so we thought to ourselves, we got to walk the talk. We can't just tell council, oh, you guys got to get out there and da, da, da. And so all of our forums over the last 2.5 years have been outside of the town hall, have been outside of Central. We've gone out there, and no better example than one of our achievements here as well was we were blessed to be asked by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade to facilitate a roundtable discussion with some Pacific leaders when the visiting UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres came to New Zealand recently. So as you would have been aware, he came here, got a phone call, and they said, oh, we'd love to get a Pacific perspective. And I said, well, what's the definition of Pacific? I'm the worst guy to ask those questions, eh? And so when after half an hour of defining what that actually means, a key thing was to say we want to have a community perspective. We want Antonio, he's coming from, what if you're first name basis guy, eh? Me and Antonio. But because the Secretary General had just come from, he's been all around the world, he meets with world leaders. We said, oh, we want to meet with you guys and business roundtable. So we said, you know what, let's have it in Mangere. We'll bring them to Mangere. And they said, oh, you don't want to have it at one of the councils? No, we'll bring them to Mangere. So that's where we had it. We had him over, and through the help of Councillor Filipaina, we had it at the Mangere Arts Centre. We brought one of the world leaders there, and that's where we had a discussion. So we had that with various specific leaders from the various facets of the New Zealand economy and medicine, health, business, tourism, all these various leaders all in one space, and we got to engage. And again, I was blessed to facilitate on behalf of the panel, to facilitate and direct the conversations. And the conversations, again, were geared to allow the Secretary General, again, a global leader, to understand the plight of the Pacific and to really understand the resilience that we have. Because that was a key thing I wanted. It wasn't just about highlighting a lot of the issues, it was highlighting the internal solutions that a lot of the communities have developed to ensure that they can progress forward as a community that is strong and resilient and positive. So again, that was a key thing for us. I think if you look at all the things we've done, all the various community forums, even the debate, we had a debate as well, and that was well attended and that was live streamed. And thank you, Councillor Casey, for allowing us to have that debate. And the issue was quite controversial at the time. I know the mayor office had some issues. Sorry to throw you under the bus, Mayor Fulgoff, but they had issues with the topic, which was, is Auckland the best place for Pacifica to live? And so it was a good platform to have those robust discussions around with Auckland housing, transport, various issues, but at the same time, opportunity. There's always opportunity here in Auckland, and that's the beauty of it. It's diverse, it's inclusive. So that dialogue got discussed in an open forum. It was live streamed. We got the Pacific Media Network involved. So again, I think for our term, what we try to highlight to council was, you do have to get out there, you have to go out there, and we used our time to engage directly with our communities in all the different parts of Auckland. And we used social media, we used the various platforms that connect with our communities. So that was a key thing we did. And just finally, just some acknowledgements, really. Just want to, firstly, just want to acknowledge Lingi, my deputy chair, who's just been the rock with me here. And her leadership as well has been really strong and positive, and has allowed us to move forward as a team. So thank you to Lingi. I want to acknowledge you publicly. Also wanted to acknowledge the leadership of Councillor Filipaina as well, as our liaison. It's been fantastic having you. We've had so many engagements, so many meetings, and I swear to you, he's turned up to about flipping 98% of that stuff. And again, that for us, it means a lot, because we know he is, just like all of you here have so many community commitments, so many responsibilities, but for him to always prioritize the work we have, to be present, really adds to the mana and prestige of the meetings that we have. So thank you. Thank you, Councillor Filipaina. Also want to acknowledge Councillor Casey as well, specifically for you know, you've got to acknowledge the overlord, eh? Don't want to get struck down. Now, so thank you for your leadership as well, and your involvement and engagement. Also, just in terms of acknowledgements, it's a hard thing, eh? When you acknowledge people, don't want to miss people out, eh? So it's just a key thing as well for us is I also want to acknowledge the staff, the awesome council staff that have done so much for us. You know, we've got Louise Mason, and then we had Natha, and we've had Mike Giddy, Austin Kim, and then we've got Koro Dickinson here, and he's, the poster boy. You had to get the best looking guy in council here, just to really, to make sure you look at it, you're looking straight at this report. And also Kalinda, again, thank you. So just wanted to acknowledge the council staff, the work that you guys have done. It's fantastic, the work you've done. And also, I'd like to acknowledge Whaanana, Efeso Collins, and Josephine Bartley, Councillor Bartley as well. I think part of the change for the Pacific community is seeing role models that are actually in the community and seeing their faces. And it's really encouraging for myself, seeing here, Councillor Filipaina, Councillor Bartley, and Whaanana, Councillor Collins, seeing you here at the table. You know, you heard Mary speak earlier about change can really, you know, the diversity, the inclusion only happens if you're at the table. And so sitting back there, it's always amazing to see you guys at the table, leading, representing our Pacifica communities. We encourage you, we bless you, and we pray that you continue to do the work that you do, because there's a whole lot of others coming through that are looking to you for the example that you set moving forward. So thank you. And just a final acknowledgement, just want to acknowledge the chairs, the other chairs that are here. The one thing I learned, one of the key lessons I've learned in doing these demographic, doing these panels, having these panels, is that many of our communities are the same. Our communities are the same. There are Pacifica, Rainbow, a lot of the communities cross over, and they're the same communities. And a lot of the work we did couldn't have been done, again, without the support from the leaders of the various panels. So I just really wanted to acknowledge and thank the chairs that are here present and all their panel members. I've really enjoyed the time with the integrated panels, and continue to pray and support that the work you do continues to progress. And again, thank you, Mayor Phil Goff and other councillors, for your time. And we'll take some questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Laupepe and Lingi. You can see how hard Councillor Filipaina's worked, because he's either run around and changed his shirt 3 or 4 times, or he is actually at everything. And for those of us who know Alf, he is at everything. So bless your heart, Alf, and thank you. We've probably got time for a question. Councillor Filipaina.
Just a very small comment, and look, I just want to acknowledge both of you, but it's the leadership, not only with the local boards, with that tatau, the health and safety bylaw, and I'm speaking on behalf of Linda as well, in regards to the work that you did with our community, even with our tūwhunga tatau, even with them as in the practitioners. So, you know, that I think was a key thing in regards to the leadership with our community and our youth. One last thing is just again with the UN Secretary General. That there is a highlight for Māngere, but I think you need to put the kudos around how that went on both the tables in front of you. So, look, congratulations to you both. I know that it's going to be a hard decision moving post this election, not only about the panels, but whether you'll be putting your name forward. But I just wanted to sort of acknowledge your leadership, Ralph, Lingi, to you both, and to the panel. That's the Chair, just wanted to acknowledge them.
Thank you so much, Councillor. Appreciate the time, appreciate the hard work, and thank you for the acknowledgement of our staff. That means a lot. Thank you very much. Malo. Looks like Sunil is getting ready to come up. Jade.
The People's Advisory Panel, the Chair, Deputy Chair and Lead Officer.
Wonderful. Warm welcome. Namaste, Nisambula Vanaka, buenos dias, ciao, hola, salam, salam alaikum, ni hao mai, haere mai, kia ora, goeiedag. I love all the greetings in the front. It says it all, really.
Just stole our presentation.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. To the Chair, Mayor, councillors, colleagues from other panels, very good morning. Could I please acknowledge or maybe start with a word of thanks to our councillors and the council staff who work tirelessly behind the scenes and give their evenings to engage with the panel. Thank you to Councillor Kathy Casey, Councillor Al Filipaina, and Lead Officer Cecilia Shamil, Kariana, Carol, Suad. Thank you so much for making the panel evenings and all your support, and also a special acknowledgement to Austin, who was instrumental in the panel setting it up with us. So thank you once again for all your help. Madam Chair, it's been an absolute privilege and honor to lead the Ethnic Peoples Advisory Panel. The panel consists of 8 passionate and diverse members representing various communities and ethnicities in Auckland who have sought to make a difference in the future of Auckland. From the early days, the panel identified 6 areas which mattered most to the ethnic communities in Auckland. You do have on your table the reports that have been distributed, and all our reflections are there for this term's report, and it has been put together in terms to maintain this sense of transparency, engagement, and advocacy on behalf of ethnic communities in Auckland. During our current term, the panel also engaged with a number of activities, including integrated panels, developing and driving the panel's work program, presentations to committees, engagements with council-controlled organizations, and also with the external ethnic organizations and forums. We did 4 various forums across Auckland, and we had a great engagement with our ethnic communities. As we all know, there's about 200 ethnic communities, and to have an engagement from them is very important for the future of Auckland, which Jade will be talking about a little bit later. But what we've engaged about is not about us, but about our children and the children's children for the next generations. It is very important to know as councillors when you make decisions that your decisions will affect not only this generation but generations to come, which will be changing the face of Auckland, the face of New Zealand as we become more and more diverse. As an example, my children are mixed, of mixed race, and even Jade's children are now of mixed race. So we are seeing that a lot in Auckland, and anything that the panel did was keeping that in mind. And it's my heartfelt plea to you, as you continue on, that whatever decisions you make, it's for the next generation. I also like to thank my colleagues Jade, Anita, Bill, Dave, who's there. Thanks for coming, Dave, Jessica, Leviska, and Hatch, who gave their contributions, who gave their insights from their own ethnic communities to make Auckland a better place. Few of the legacies or learnings that we had during this term was, one was we drove with the idea of future of Auckland, and Jade will talk a little bit about it, and the other one was, and I think it's a thing to think about when you, for the next panel, when the mayor considers is, we talk about ethnicities, but, what is we felt that there were people left out, for example, people from Europe or Middle Europe or Eastern European. When we talk about ethnicities, they also need to be included. There's a growing number of ethnicities from Eastern Europe or from America, South America, etc., Middle East, coming to Auckland, making Auckland their place. So, what does the word ethnic mean? So I think maybe a name change for the future could be good. The other one was the panels connect with the community. We found that when panel met outside the building, outside this town hall, they connected more and more, and that's a great opportunity for the councillors and for the Aucklanders to connect with each other. And one of the highlights, I think, was we drove the civic participation. As we know, the elections are coming up, but it's great to see the number of ethnic peoples or people who have made New Zealand their home standing up in Auckland in local boards or for the councillors. So that is one of our great achievements. I'd just like to leave you with one thought, which is never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, that is the only way the world can be changed. I'll pass over to Jade.
Kia ora. Thank you, Sunil. Ni hao, lei hao, namaste, kia ora koutou. Ko Jade Tukuingoa. So my name is Jade Tang Taylor, and really excited to be here. Really humbled to be Deputy Chair alongside our wonderful Chair, Sunil, for the Ethnic Peoples Advisory Panel. Just want to acknowledge as well, Councillor Alf, that's disappeared. But just want to say thank you for selecting me. My experience and connection to the panel actually expanded the past two panels. I was part of the interview panel to recruit the first term and second term panel. And I guess I was pregnant at the time, actually, that it was my due date that I was actually, I'd like to see what it'd be like on the other side. And so they called me in for an interview rather than being on the interview panel. And then the first day out of confinement, we had our first demographic panels meeting as well. So Phoenix, it's been 2.5 years since I've been part of this term, and Phoenix has been on every step of the journey. And I think the last time we presented, she was here sleeping on me. Now she'd be running riot. So that's why she's not here today. It's no surprise to you that there's obviously over 200 different ethnicities in Tamaki Makaurau, over 160 different languages spoken, especially in the Puketa Pāpā local board. And I guess by 2038, this is, Stats New Zealand announced in May 2017, by 2038, ethnic diversity is projected to rise and to be on par with Māori Pacifica. So as we are rapidly moving towards a multicultural and diverse city, to acknowledge and also not forget our bicultural roots and contexts in which we all come from. And I think that we all need to remind ourselves of that. So before I go too far, let's just play this wonderful video, talking about future generations. It's really important not to just share our perspectives, but to reach out to our communities and our younger generations to see what they believe the future of Auckland looks like.
Rubbish in our sleep. Please, teachers, don't be paying up. The next 10 years, I don't want to see any homeless people sitting on the streets. That they shouldn't make people rent anymore. I think we should ban all plastic straws and bags, things like that. But I want to see less traffic. Lots of people speaking fluent Maori. I think that Auckland needs a little bit more environmentally friendly transport.
I don't even know that she thinks about these things. And they have their own opinion.
And they are aware that the houses are very expensive in Auckland. They are also aware of homelessness, which is a big surprise for me.
I do like the idea that he imagines a future where maybe petrol cars become obsolete.
Environmentally, we can do so much more.
What children feel about the environment, I would say, how much they love and how much they are aware of what's dangerous for the environment, how much they feel their future actually. We need to follow their, that love, that passion.
It would be a valued lesson for them if they get to learn more about the Maori culture.
Just educating the society about Maori people and more making ties and connections between all cultural communities, including Maori.
What can we do to contribute to this process? I think the whole bicultural nation thing needs not to just be a lip service. We are Maori Liri, we should be making the effort to actually get to understand Maori culture, Maori ways of thinking and being.
I want to feel equality. I want to feel diversity. I want to feel acceptance.
Equality all.
So I want them to be accepted as kids. And everyone, I think, wants acceptance, wants to belong. So I'm just really that these things are deeply.
I like that they're already starting to think about these things, even though they're quite young.
I think Auckland's going to be in good hands. Massive such a future.
And they were thinking about how the Auckland looks like for our children. So I hope to contribute together.
Actually, this is an amazing city where we can learn from each other, and there's so many things, so many interesting people with so many great ideas.
I will build some more fun things so that everybody can have fun.
Yeah, so more funding so everyone could have more fun. So success looks like, a sense of belonging and contribution. Since, these children or next generation have a strong sense of environmental and social justice kind of embedded in them. And not just a diverse, but also an inclusive civic participation. And as one of them said, equality for all as well. So I also am really conscious that earlier this year we had the Christchurch terror attacks, and just want to acknowledge our ethnic community, or our wider community of Auckland that really rose up and supported them, and in particular Auckland Council for partnering with local mosques as well, and Phil have been in multiple kind of engagements around Tamaki, Makaurau. There's huge amount of, did you cut me off? Huge amount of internal support within council as well. Councillor Shamil was leading it, as well as Sawad and the wider community. And just wanted to thank and acknowledge Councillor Kathy Casey around inviting Anjum Rahman to speak at our co-chaired meeting, and her sharing, allowing her to share her vision of inclusive Aotearoa collective as well. So just wanted to say thank you. I said this, we're actually hosting a dinner at Foundation North last night, another hat that I wear, and something we're asking, what does inclusive Aotearoa, inclusive Auckland look like? And I always say that, you know, diversity is being invited to the party, but inclusion is being asked to dance. So look forward to more dancing in future terms, I guess. Did you want to end with anything?
Well, just once again, thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to be on the panel, and to all the councillors and the council staff, thank you so much. We do hope that we've made a small impact for future generations to come, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Yeah, it's easy just to sort of think, you know, gosh, isn't this warm and celebratory? But if you look at Christchurch, if you look at what some of our ethnic candidates are facing in this election, there is so much work to do, because there is a vicious and vile underbelly that still exists in our community who is not prepared to accept ethnic leadership, diversity of any kind, and is prepared to make that known. So probably without getting too dramatic, the work of the ethnic panel has probably never felt more important. So kia ora and thank you. Any questions? Councillor Fletcher.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the work undertaken. You raised in your presentation the possibility of a name change going into the future to more accurately reflect the work. What would your recommendation of that name change be?
I think we've had a good debate about it, and something around inclusiveness, or something that doesn't, because when you say ethnic, the first thing that comes to your mind is a person of, even like, I think Councillor Cassie also mentioned that she's also ethnic, coming from Scotland, So what about people coming from Eastern Europe or Eastern Europe? We just, so to answer is maybe something around inclusive panels, where we are not just, not pointing towards one particular race, or there's a lot of people from South America, and Lubiska, who was from Croatia. She was always passionate that her part of people, or her people from Middle Eastern Europe, are neglected because they are also ethnic. So who looks after them? So it could be. I'm sure there are a lot of good brains in the council to come up with some name.
So the implication, inclusion rather than exclusion.
Correct.
Because of the association of ethnic being exclusion.
Yes, ethnic
thanks.
would be exclusion. You're just focusing on few ethnicities rather than a diverse ethnicity. Yes.
Yeah, we're definitely not copywriters, so we don't necessarily know what the exact term is yet, but I guess ethnic does have othering connotations, which we do want to avoid moving forward. Not entirely sure what the new name might be, but yeah, we'll embrace it.
But it certainly needs a change.
Yeah, and it's a good discussion. Councillor Filipaina.
Just a comment. I feel humble being liaison officer to two advisory panels, but this particular one, I just want to acknowledge both, obviously, the chair, the deputy chair, and the panel, but Shamil, I want to acknowledge you and the work that in March, also bringing the Muslim internal support network together. I and Sunil, you and I attended the meeting that we had in the bottom floor, so just around that tragedy. So just want to acknowledge you all with that. And Jade, just finally, Jade, I want to acknowledge your work around the future of Auckland, because I know with the contacts with the family and everything else, I just hope that everybody, in regards to the storytelling, and it's the website's on there, just to have a look and a good listen to it. So just wanted those acknowledgements to my other panel. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Right, thank you very much. And just acknowledging Dave, who's there and hard-working out in the community, as always. Lovely to see you, Dave. Thank you very much for the awesome work. So just reminding people, we've got our seniors panel and then youth, and then we're going to do it the other way around? Seniors last? That's what I need to check on. No.
Youth first.
Youth first. Right, youth panel.
Damien Vicinha to come forward.
Kia ora everyone. Malay. It's kind of a bittersweet moment for us. I remember when Damien was 18 and I was 19 when we started this panel, and so it feels like we're almost graduating. So yeah, it's been awesome. First and foremost, I just really want to acknowledge my panel members who have come along. So Luke, Tarek, and Favor, and as well as the Auckland Council staff members, Carol, Austin, Mara, Amanda, Andrew, Michelle, and as well as Councillor Kathy Casey and Councillor Efeso Collins. This report in front of you would not have happened without the amazing staff members to guide us, and as well as the support of the councillors as well. So it's been an awesome journey, quite a short one, but it's been awesome.
Just want to quickly introduce myself. Malole sui fō malelangi mama lo ingoa o Damien se mauwhari ipi loa. Ko lano masa whangamalo toku iwi no manuhiri a tāmiki ahau. No reira, tēnā koutou katoa. So thank you for this opportunity, just through the chair and to all the councillors. For those that we've had a lot more interactions with, we want to thank you for the time and the opportunities that you've given us to interact with you, namely Councillor Darby and Councillor Hills, in particular for allowing us to be a part of a lot of the Auckland Plan discussion and a lot of that consultation process. So thank you very much for allowing us to be a part of that process. We just want to quickly give you a little bit of background information as to what the panel has been up to for the last term, also acknowledging all the work that the previous panels have done up until now. So really piggybacking off what everything has been done previously. So we had set 4 priorities at the beginning of our term. They were around civic participation and engagement, transport and accessibility, environment and sustainability, and homelessness, in particular with a focus on youth. So yeah.
During this panel, in the beginning, a lot of individuals, I guess from young people from Youth Voices had mentioned that they really wanted us to engage with them. And so we made it a huge priority alongside, I guess, our 4 main priorities to really show up to events and show up to youth, I guess, orientated events in every shape and form. When it came to our priorities as well, we kind of utilized our public meetings to actually provide a platform for young people to come along and share the amazing work they're doing. And I think that the 4 priorities that have been set out was definitely something that I guess from the experiences of the Youth Advisory Panel members and clearly the events that have kind of happened this year, that they kind of reflect young people and the importance of these issues. In which, yeah, we kind of are quite proud of those 4 priorities, as well as our engagement that we did on the side. Yeah, I guess everything's kind of in the report. We didn't really plan on going in depth with anything else, but we're happy to have any questions. In regards to recommendations, it's been an awesome experience for myself to watch my panel members kind of develop into their own self and I guess their own advocate. You know, one particular panel member, she was 16 when she joined, and now she's in her first year of university. And so it's been awesome watching kind of the development of young people in this panel, especially the panel members. And so I think there's a lot of conversation around whether we should increase or decrease the panel, particularly the Youth Advisory Panel. And so I think we're kind of open to discussions having, I guess, being made around that topic and seeing how that goes. But yeah.
Another one of our recommendations is around training and proper governance training for young people, because this is a very intimidating space to walk into for a lot of young people. If we consider how hard it is, or how hard I can guess it is for you councillors to sit around this table and to constantly be bombarded with information about what the future of Auckland looks like for young people that are walking into this space, we feel that times 10. So just around supporting our young people and making sure that even as welcome as they feel, that they also feel that they can keep up with all of the information that's being given. So that's pretty much our biggest recommendations for the next panel moving forward. Otherwise, we're very, very grateful and privileged for this opportunity to sit and really have an opportunity to talk with decision makers that have a lot of influence over the progression of our city, and we're really grateful for this opportunity to do so.
Yeah, and I think before we end our presentation, I really just want to tautoko a lot of the councillors here for kind of including us in a lot of the plans that have been going on, a lot of the conversations. It's been such a privilege to be in this space, and we really, really do appreciate it. You guys have had such a huge role in our development as young people, and so we really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm sure there might be a comment or two. Just one very quick thing. I was just at a presentation last week with some young people, and they made the point really strongly that really resonated with me. As we, particularly grey heads like me, we keep talking about, the youth are our future, blah, blah. And they went, no, the future is, we are the youth are the now. And we're making decisions right now that are going to impact on the future, and we need our youth alongside us making those decisions right now. This isn't sort of a thing around the corner or a thing in the future, so thank you. Comments? Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to say it's been my honour as the councillor liaison for the youth panel to work alongside them. I spoke last night. We met last night for the final time. They went right through till around 8:30. And then dashed off. I dashed off, but it was such a good meeting. We thanked the staff that have been so supportive, but I just wanted to reiterate the words that I shared with the young people yesterday. We had our meeting in here last night, and I thought the most fitting way to offer a suggestion for the way forward is to get used to sitting at this table. And encouraging them to really consider seeking public office or returning to council as council staffers, because having observed much of their activities and their discussions over the last it's been more like 2 and a bit years, I've been thrown a little bit by how bold they are, and I thought I was pretty bold, but they're bold, they're so intelligent. We've had a lot of our members leave to go on to university study elsewhere, winning scholarships, getting work roles that are amazing. And so this has been a talented group of young people who are bold and willing and caring for this city. And so I just wanted to offer my thanks for all that I've learnt personally from each of you as you've taken part in the discussions and listening to last night, and the care in which you want applied for the next term, because you know what your experiences have been, and you want just as much care, as you've mentioned today, just as much care and nurture and support to be given to the next group. I know you were only 18 and 19 when you started out in the role, and we're all similar ages, but I just wanted to say well done. This is so exciting for the future of our city, and so congratulations to each of you on the panel. And just on a personal note, well done to both of you for leading the group. I know we've met out at cafes certain times, just the three of us, and I've really enjoyed your challenge to me, and I hope I've been just as useful and challenging back so that we grow as a city. And so I think you've all done a wonderful job to offer the voice, offer the space, offer the inclinations, the leanings and the ideas of young people. And I know we're tough on you sometimes because we expect you to speak for everybody, and I know you kind of wear that too, but you've been honest with your presentations and your commitments to the group, and I just wanted to offer you a heartfelt thanks. Thank you.
Perfect point to end on, I think, Councillor Collins. That sums it up. Oh, Councillor Simpson?
I'd hate to end the perfect point, but I've just got a question, if I may, Madam Chair, please. I want to say, again, congratulations for what you're doing. Look, there's a lot of talk out there, especially at election time, that the youth voice should be heard and isn't heard. And there's also a lot of talk that when we deal with things like, climate change, sustainability, carbon emissions, etc., that the young people understand that better than potentially sometimes the older. So I'm interested in I understand your panel, and I think that's absolutely wonderful, but what can the panel do to ensure that the youth voice is well representative in every local board area, certainly every ward area, with a whole team of people supporting that? What are we doing to sort of take your fantastic work and grow it out further throughout the region so we really can show that Auckland is listening to youth in many, many ways?
I think that's a really good question. I think kind of looking at the dynamic of youth voices now, I think there's been an increase in youth voices in local areas. And I think, you know, when we started Youth Voices when we were 15, there was probably about like 5 youth voices. And so now it's kind of increased to, you know, Puketapa has a youth voice, has a youth board. And I think we're kind of going into that movement of where we're starting to establish youth voices, which I think they're quite detrimental in ensuring that youth voices are kind of heard. And a lot of these issues are I guess, raised by those young people. It provides a platform for young people to kind of join and kind of, instead of coming to council, I guess, or be a part of the youth advisory panel, they can work on local issues as well as amplify, I guess, national or regional issues.
And just to add on to that, so just to give you some context, when council shifted and there was the implementation of the community empowerment unit, they removed, or a lot of youth voice groups broke down. So it went from roughly 21 youth voice groups across the region to about 5 or 6 that were still operational when that happened. Right now, we are sitting at roughly 16 to 17 established operating youth voice groups that are all pushing for the same kind of idea of amplifying youth voices at a local level across the region, and that's something that's continuing to burn across the region, I guess. And a lot of our panel members have encouraged each other to make sure that they are getting involved in their local communities with those boards and those youth voice groups as well, if that answers your question.
I guess part of the challenge is getting young people out voting for people who are at least youth adjacent, like Councillor Collins, who's now 19, I think, are you, Councillor Collins?
And a half.
And the other partner will be controversial and say it's also the challenge is people like me who are not youth adjacent stepping aside and making way for our youth leaders of the future, not hanging on till we're 90. So, not that anyone around this table at the moment is doing that.
And I think nationally as well, we've seen an influx of more young people standing for public office, as Councillor Ufessel was saying. Within Auckland as well, we've seen a lot more young people put their hand up just to stand for their local boards, some for councillors, some for mayor even. And it's been really awesome to see how much young people are starting to identify their worth in this public setting. So yeah, it's been really awesome to be a part of that movement.
And hugely appreciate your work, and we don't underestimate for 1 minute the challenges that go alongside trying to provide that voice of youth in our sometimes complex, multi-layered and confusing organisation. So thank you very much. Awesome. And now, finally, our seniors panel, and I'd like to warmly welcome Janet and team. And I'll be putting up my hand for the seniors panel, I think, in possibly the next term, Janet. Warmest welcome, as always. Oh, fantastic. And David and Judy and anyone else? No?
No, what to do here? Just
right, over to you.
Oh, tēnā koutou katoa, Madam Chairman. Thank you for having us here today. And thank you to all councillors that have stayed the morning. It's been a long period for you all. I'd like to introduce my Deputy Chair, David Wong Hop, who's been a great support to me, and Judy Blakey, who in her other life was a researcher, and so we have put her skills to work to prepare most of the chronology of events that appear in the attached major report. You are receiving a condensed version, which Carol has managed to provide us with as well, with some pretty coloured pictures, not like the one in your agenda. So, it goes without saying, I guess, that our key goal was the desire for Auckland Council to join the World Health Global Network of Age-Friendly Cities and Communities. No surprise to you at all. Not just to set an example as the largest local authority in the country, but because it is a sensible, practical step to take to make life better for everyone at all stages of life. And I guess that's reflected to some extent in the way we did work with people from the other panels, particularly the disability panel, which Mary raised with you earlier. But the report attached to the agenda documents part of our journey because we're not there yet. That is not an admission that we are not all here. We are. The work programme to support Council's entry is not yet complete. That's the point we're making. The Age-Friendly Project team is still analysing data from the series of workshops with service providers and the community at large. This information will provide guidance as to where the emphasis should be placed at the next step. We ask that the incoming council, including local boards, and this is another point that's been raised by other panels, be reminded of the need for the whole council family to be aware of the benefits of adopting the move. Staff also need to understand the rationale, as we have repeatedly had to remind presenters of the need to recognise and use an age-friendly lens when developing policy, planning, investing in infrastructure and monitoring the results. A case in point, and this is not meant as a criticism, it's meant as an educational comment. They left educated from our meeting. Case in point was the Emergency Disaster and Recovery document, which was presented to us recently. I think it was in June. After it had been signed off for release. It was a response to a serious storm and reflected what were learnings from that event, particularly from Piha. Footnotes in very small print indicated that the panel had been consulted in 2016. That was the previous panel. It made not one mention of the need to be aware of older, possibly vulnerable people, yet it had a section each for children and dogs. So you see the point, I'm sure. The principle must be embedded in everyone's thinking. The report says that we've provided feedback on over 30 pieces of work, but my tally from the updated work plan, which is also attached to your agenda, that at least 50 items, as well as input into the Auckland Plan Refresh and the 2018 to 28 long-term plan. In addition, an opinion piece has recently gone to the Office for Seniors, which has supported Council throughout the process. The next step will be deciding on whether advisory panels continue, and if they do, we ask that the Seniors panel, whoever may be there, be involved in deciding what form of governance structure will advance and monitor the Age-Friendly City work programme. But our team has been a team, and I'd like to applaud our coaches and trainers. And they've been mentioned earlier today too, and we do owe them all a very deep debt of gratitude, especially our principal advisors, Austin Kim, who did a great job at the beginning and then deserted us, but we welcomed Carol then. But he has gone on to higher things, I think. We were really well served by our lead officer, Alison Dobie, who stayed with us for 2 years, or no, 18 months or something, and then she also decided to retire. Some of us don't ever do that, of course. But she was a great support to the panel. And we've welcomed John Nash to take her place. But we have one stalwart, and she got a medal the other day. That's our Alison's deputy, Cecily Dower, who's sitting here today. I'd like to also thank and recognise the governance advisors that have been with us too. We had Luca Gerbvac, and then we had Suad Ali. Great to see you, Suad. And now we have Sandra Gordon, who's an old Waitakere friend too. All have been efficient and helpful and supportive of what we've tried to do. Special thanks go to Councillors Linda Cooper and Daniel Newman and their chief, Overlaird Kathy Casey. And we thank Mayor Goff and the governing body for the opportunity to work with all these dedicated folk, and to Stephen Town for instituting meetings for panel representatives to join the executive leadership team and council chairman. That was really appreciated by all panels. For our part, we hope our advice has been helpful in moving the city forward. We thank you for the privilege of being a part of it. It's been a great ride. We're happy to take any questions if there are any, but we don't want to prolong you from your lunch or from anything else that might be happening. After there are any questions, I'll ask for the indulgence of another minute or two, Madam Chair.
I'm sure there'll be a comment or two. Just before I go to the Mayor, can I just thank the panel most warmly and acknowledge my very dear friend and long-time mentor. I can't think of her as anything other than Dame Janet. She is Dame Janet out west, and it's about time she bloody well was, if anyone who makes those kind of decisions is listening.
Not what you're supposed to say on these occasions.
I think everything that is decent about politics, everything that is integrity with the full stop and the apostrophe in the correct place is tied up in this extraordinary woman, and for that I thank you at a personal level, Janet. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and can I begin by thanking Janet and Judy and David. I seem to see all three of them at a whole series of different meetings around the community, so you're not just in one body, and perhaps it's your outreach into the community that leads to your appointment to this committee. Janet in particular, I've said it before, but I think it's now 51 years of public service. And that's just remarkable. When Janet said before, some people retire, she was obviously not referring to herself, nor any intention, and I welcome that. Madam Chair, I'd just like to take this opportunity to acknowledge all of the panels today. I haven't spoken on all of them because there's a lot of panels and it takes a long time. End of term report sounds dreadfully boring, but I think fellow councillors would agree with me that this session this morning has been anything but boring. We've seen the whole cross-section, the spectrum of our community, the seniors here with so much experience, so much contribution, and immediately before you, the young people with such hope for the future and looking forward and the world that they will, before too long, be leaders of. And I think seeing that diversity, Madam Chair, is an excellent reason why we have these panels. We want to reach out into all parts of the community, and that's really important for Council. And I've just been struck today by the incredible calibre and energy and enthusiasm of all of the people that have presented to us. And you raised the question, I think, Janet, if the panels continue, my absolute intention would be to continue these panels as a way of outreach for us and a way for us to get a diversity of opinion from across our community. I think when we look at what we want Auckland to be in the future, it's about diversity and it is about inclusion and belonging. And this is one way in which we can embrace the breadth of our community and benefit from the richness of views and differences of perception and background and experience that the panels bring. But particularly to your panel, thank you so much for the hard work that you've put in. And it's been a real pleasure meeting with you on a number of occasions. Not all meetings can be like that, as Judy knows from some recent ones. And not all people have the progressive and broad outlook that you bring to our council. But thank you so much for that. It's been a pleasure working with you for this term. And I think on behalf of all of us, thank you for your service and thank you for your contribution.
We thank you all too.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think you speak for all of us. Any other comments? Richard.
I just want to quickly say thank you for all the work you've done, with age-friendly cities, with all the information and the positive way you put it all across when we're getting things wrong and getting things right. I just want a quick little plug, and Judy will support me. We had yesterday Joan's just retirement from one thing, not from everything. Joan Lardner's retirement from the CAB after 120 years on there. She's a fantastic woman, part of the senior advisory panel, and she yesterday put on a great show for about 90 or 100 of us there. She's set up almost everything in my community over the years and spread that love and that passion around Auckland. It's a shame she's not here today, but she's had to step back from a couple of things, but she will no doubt be more and more active in our ears and on the cell phone like she usually is when she's calling me about something. But just wanted to acknowledge you all, but especially Joan, who can't be here today. But fantastic woman who I just don't know how she's done everything she's done and continues to do it. And like she always says, the oldest youth worker in the room. So, But thank you all for your effort, your energy, and just the positive drive to get things done, even when it takes a long time sometimes.
Thank you. May I then, Madam Chair, just offer my best wishes to all those people that are standing. Good luck to you all. We appreciate, I guess us older ones appreciate more than most, the work that goes into what you do. So that's one thing. The other is to congratulate those who got there without having to fight for it this time. That's a great way to be, isn't it? But to those that are stepping down, I'd like to thank you too for your service. That's Sir John and Penny. Now, I can tell you a bit of a story, perhaps. About 9 years ago now, it would be. And it was at a terrible time for us in Waitakere when we were all trying to get everything prepared for the great takeover. And I chaired the final meeting of our long-term plan committee. A photo was taken at the end of that, which pops up periodically on the dreaded Facebook. And it shows Penny presenting me with a lovely bunch of flowers. Now, it wasn't exactly my last meeting either that I chaired, just as this one isn't, but I never thought I would be here on such an occasion because I didn't think she would step down as quickly as she has. I mean, she hasn't been there anywhere near long enough yet. But I have some moles placed in the rear of the building, and I'd just like to return the favour, if you would allow me. I assure you, not 1 cent of ratepayers' money. They come from the heart of the world.
Thank you to the panel, thank you to my darling friend, and it's appreciated hugely. Any other comments before we break? I think that the overlaid is the best comment of the day, and that just is
Just
Janet
before
all
we
over.
close the item, on Friday in this room, what day is this? Tuesday. On Friday this week, in this room between 3 and 5, we have a function to say thank you to the panels. You've all been invited, so do come and interact and enjoy some hospitality.
Thank you very much, and what a beautiful way to end. We appreciate it hugely. Thank you. Now, we've got the recommendation, which seems, after all of this amazing presenting, somewhat threadbare. But, Mr Mayor, would you and Councillor Casey like to move and second that? Lovely. Councillor Casey. Or Councillor Casey and the Mayor.